Okay, so this video is going to show you how to factor quadratics with other leading coefficients. The last video showed you coefficients equal to 1. This one is other leading coefficients. So whenever the leading coefficient is not 1, you're going to factor it this way. It's kind of long, but hopefully it's not too bad. First things first, always check to see if there's a GCF between all three terms. These three terms don't have a common factor, so there is no GCF. So first step, take the A value, the number out front, and multiply it by the C value. So in this case, you're going to do 3 times negative 3. That's step 1. Equals negative 9. So what you're going to do is you're going to look for two numbers. So you need two numbers. They have to multiply to that negative 9. And they have to add to positive 8. The reason why I'm saying they have to add to positive 8 is because they always have to add to whatever that number is. It's 8, so that's what they have to add to. So take a second, see if you can think of the numbers. This one shouldn't be too bad, they're not that big. The numbers that you want are going to be 9 and negative 1. Right? Because 9 times negative 1 is negative 9. 9 plus negative 1 is 8. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to replace 8x with those two numbers I just got, 9 and negative 1. But you have to add the x's on. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say 3x squared. I'm going to replace the 8x with the two numbers that we just got, 9 and negative 1. I'm going to put negative 1 first. You don't have to. Now you're going to do factoring by grouping. So I'm going to group these two together, and I'm going to group these two together, and take out the GCF of each group. So the first group has a GCF of x. So you factor out the GCF of x, and it leaves you with 3x minus 1, because x times 3x gives you 3x squared, and x times negative 1 gives you negative x. The second group has a GCF of 3. So you factor out the GCF of 3, and again, you're left with 3x minus 1, because 3 times 3x equals 9x. 3 times negative 1 equals negative 3. Now, at this point, the parentheses should match. Okay, look, see how those parentheses match those parentheses? So what you do is you factor that out now. That's the common factor. That gets factored out to the front, and everything else left over, in this case, x plus 3, comes in the second set of parentheses. Let's try one more. Factor 12x squared minus 33x plus 18. Always check for GCF first. This one has a GCF. It has a GCF of 3. All three terms have a 3 in common. So you factor out the GCF of 3. You're left with 4x squared minus 11x plus 6. And now what you're going to do is you're going to factor this trinomial in the parentheses. You just have to make sure you write the 3, that GCF 3. You can write that first in every single step throughout the entire problem. Okay? But now you're going to factor this trinomial just like we did in example 1. So step 1, take the A value 4, multiply it by the C value 6. That equals 24. Now you need to find two numbers that multiply to that 24. Okay, we need two numbers. I just always like to write this down off to the side. They have to multiply the 24 we just got. And they have to add to negative 11. I got that negative 11 from right here. Okay? So the pair that you want is going to be negative 8 and negative 3. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this. 4x squared. You rewrite this, you substitute in for negative 11x with the two numbers you just got. In this case, it was negative 8x and negative 3x from the last step, remember. And now you do factoring by grouping. I'm going to group these two terms together, and I'm going to group these two terms together. So this first group has a GCF of 4x. So you factor that out. So we still have that 3 out front. Take out a 4x, and it leaves you with x minus 2. Because 4x times x is 4x squared. And 4x times negative 2 is negative 8x. The second group has a GCF of, I'm going to take out a negative 3. I'll explain why in a minute. Take out a GCF of negative 3, and it leaves you with x minus 2 in parentheses. Because negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and negative 3 times negative 2 is 6. If you just took out a positive 3 right there, then you would have negative x plus 2, which would not be the exact same thing as x minus 2. So I took out a negative 3, so that way these parentheses match these parentheses exactly. Okay? Now the x minus 2 is in common. See that x minus 2 and that x minus 2, those are in common. So I'm going to factor that out. I'm still going to put that 3 first. So 3 comes first. Then comes the x minus 2 I just mentioned. And then everything left over. In this case, the 4x minus 3 comes at the end. And that is how you factor when the leading coefficient is not 1.